Keeping it a secret, that was definitely the biggest challenge. One that, through many threats and non-disclosure agreements and white lies, we were able to accomplish.
So was there ever because in this day and age, there's so many loose ends out there. So did you have to make sure that you only went to places that you knew? Like, I would assume there would be like a detail crew checking out every place and making sure they got the proper clearances to
No,
get you
the,
guys.
the beautiful thing about doing a record in Vegas is it gives you plausible deniability. It's not so hard to imagine that the guys in Disturbed like to hang out in Vegas every once in a while, right? And to even further plant the seed of doubt in people's heads, Dan and Mike were going home every other weekend, literally. And so they'd make sure to post from home when they were at home on their social media pages. Like, oh, wait, I might have heard something that Disturbed's getting back together, but David's in Vegas, and the other guys are still at home. That can't possibly be, right? So
Now, as far as working that way, I know that you went to Chicago to do the album. Was it?
well, not to do the album. Basically, Danny came to see me in January of 2014 to see the baby. He hadn't seen my son yet since he came into the world. And when you first have a kid, the first 8 to 12 months is challenging. So it took some time till we were settled enough, and he came out and spent a little bit of time together. We talked to each other about having the bug, and I went out to Chicago with my family to visit them. And Mikey came up from Milwaukee, and we had a nice dinner together in March. And it was a couple weeks later that Danny sent me the first batch of ideas he had. And there were 3 or 4 ideas, just some rough structures. And I busted my head trying to come up with stuff for them for the better part of a month, and was kind of hitting a wall. Not that I wasn't coming up with things, but I wasn't trusting them. I was being very, very hypercritical of my own work. And I usually am, but it was much more intense this time. Maybe the hiatus, maybe everything made it worse, in terms of me being very judgmental of my own work. But and the added pressure that we put on ourselves and on myself. And so I said to him, I need your help. I'm going to come out there. Let's get together in a room. Let me use you and Mikey as a barometer, and let me be able to judge by your reactions on the spot. Whether or not I'm headed in a direction that makes sense, or that's grabbing you. And that is how we wrote in the same room together for the duration of the writing process. Now, they'd come out to me in Austin, and I'd go out to them in Chicago, and that kept happening back and forth during the entire duration of the process.
So was it like you had your, recordings with you, like in a computer
No,
form, or?
no. I mean, it was all up here for me. And don't get me wrong, I'd still execute things at home on my own system when I was trying stuff, if I was trying stuff. But we literally, and that literally only occurred prior to me going out to Chicago. Every single other session after that point was, like I said, the 3 of us in the same room. So whether they came out to me and we were tracking ideas at my studio at home, or whether we were doing it at Danny's studio at home, that's just how it went for the duration of the time.
Yeah. Was it different going into this album and doing it that way in people's home studios?
It was comfortable, in that sense. But the difference was in the chemistry and the reinvigoration and reinspiration that it gave us, of realizing, holy, when we get into a room together, it's undeniable. The vibe, the chemistry, the things that we're able to come up with. Every single day we had great stuff. There was not a single wasted day. And when you leave the room at the end of each day with things that stick in your head and that resonate within you, it just inspires you for the next session. I mean, each time we got together, it made us more and more excited, more and more confident, felt stronger. That was different because we had relied on technology for so long. Because we hadn't been living in the same city since the Believe record, so we were sending files back and forth, and not that that was, we didn't sacrifice the records per se, but I, to a certain extent, chemistry takes you to another level, and being in front of each other takes you to another level. And I'll tell you that after this whole period of rediscovery, we're never going to go back to the technological way.
Yeah.
It's always going to be with us in the same room. That this solidified it for us,
Yeah.
no doubt.
Yeah. Do you think that the pressures of, the rigmarole of, because Disturbed when it gets running is a huge machine. Do you think the pressures of the machine of Disturbed maybe took away a little bit from those interpersonal relationships?
The cyclical nature of it took some of our passion away. The relationships were always there, but yeah, the business side of things can get to you. But we try not to even look at it that way. I mean, look, there's no. We're smart guys. We've been smart about how we've done what we've done. We've got good business minds on in our heads. So that has always been something that we have been very careful about. But ultimately, all the business decisions in the world and all of the planning and acumen you may have doesn't replace passion. It doesn't replace chemistry. It doesn't replace undeniable hooks if you're fortunate enough to come up with them. So that will always bring you back. And we're brothers. We've known each other for so long, since August of '96, for God's sake. I mean, and a band is very much like a marriage, and sometimes to realize just how much you love the other person, you gotta miss them for a little bit, right? And doing some of the things that we did during the hiatus made us more well-rounded as musicians. We learned so much through those experiences, and maybe what was most important out of what we learned is our appreciation for one another. Because not that it wasn't a tremendous honor and a privilege to do everything that I got to do, as it was. I mean, I'm still weirded out by the whole thing, because, I got to produce Glenn Hughes. I got to, have him on my record. I got to work with Dave Mustaine on the Super Collider record. I got to produce the Trivium record. I mean, all these amazing opportunities and ways to expand my creative palette and our abilities. Danny and Mike working with the Fight or Flight project, and John with Adrenaline Mob, and with Jeff Tate and everybody else. And we all took that, and now we have that. And myself and Dan and Mike in particular, we took all of that knowledge and then poured it into the passion that we have, and the chemistry that we have. And so, everything definitely happens for a reason, but being away from Disturbed definitely made me appreciate Disturbed
Yeah, no doubt.
more than anything.
And you talk about, I guess August of next year is going to mark 20 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you look upon that part A and part B? Is there anything planned in part C? Could you take us back? What do you remember now, looking back at the time that band was conceived?
There's nothing planned yet, but there probably will have to be something. Who knows? I didn't even realize that it was coming up on that, so thank you for reminding me. But if you would tell me almost 20 years ago that when we played our very first show in Burbank, Illinois, and this tiny little place called Champs Bar and Grill, or it wasn't grill, just Champs Bar, that I'd be sitting here talking to you, looking back at everything that has happened, I'd tell you you're crazy. I mean, I it's been very surreal, and we've been very, very fortunate and very blessed, and I'm very grateful for everything that we've been privy to.
And what do you remember about the first meeting and encounter?
That it was awkward as hell. I answered an ad in the Illinois Entertainer, and that Dan and Mike and Fuzz at the time had put out. And it was kind of fluffed up a little bit. They said that they already had like a record deal in the works, and studio time. They had studio time because they were partnered with a buddy of theirs in building rehearsal spaces who also had a studio. So it wasn't a fabrication completely. That actually did exist, but we shared a lot of the same current influences at the time. The first Deftones record had just come out. The first Korn record had just come out. So the whole birth of nu metal at the time was just starting. And I hadn't even touched metal for the longest time at that point. My metal was back in the 80s, and it was, while everybody else was still very much into the hair bands, which I was into a few, I was strictly Sabbath, Maiden, Priest, Metallica, Pantera. And anything else, well, maybe Whitesnake, maybe, we can go outside the box a little bit, but I was, pretty much with blinders on to a certain extent. You're a kid, you don't, you tend to be a little bit more narrow-minded than you are when you are older, but it was my roommate at the time, who unfortunately is no longer with us, who introduced me to the first Deftones record and to the first Korn record. And he actually went with me to that first audition. And I had been on like 30, 40 auditions already within the couple months that preceded my Disturbed meeting, which they were not Disturbed yet. They had called themselves Brawl at the time, which I kind of thought was a silly name. But and I walked in, total North Side Chicago stoner, in my jean shorts and sandals and white t-shirt, and stuck out like a sore thumb in the South Side Chicago rehearsal spot that they had, where these guys looked like members of Skid Row. Flannel t-shirts open with no shirt underneath, and the acid-washed, super frayed jeans, and the Converse All-Stars with the tongues hanging out and no laces. I mean, the whole 9 yards. Feathered, long, crazy hair, and, they looked at me, and I looked at them, and we were like, one of these things is not like the other. It's just, but, and they wanted me to play cover songs with them. Like, well, what covers do you know? And I'm like, I know lots of covers. Why? Well, what do you know? Let's play. I'm like, are you guys a cover band? No. You have original material, right? Yeah. PA work? Yeah. Okay. Microphone work? Yeah. Let me have it. Really? Yeah. You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. I want to hear your original material. That's why I'm here. So let's play. And they were very surprised and somewhat taken aback by it. I'm like, who's this guy? And they started playing one of their song ideas, and listened to it for a couple minutes, and came up with a melody in my head, and married a lyric to it that I had written for a song in a group that I was in previously. And that song ended up becoming Want, one of the tracks on The Sickness, that very first day. And I went home with my roommate, and I was telling him, I'm like, man, I don't know about this, because I've never sang to anything so aggressive before. I'm no Phil Anselmo. I don't know if I can pull this stuff off. They were very Pantera-esque when I met them. And the singer that they had prior to me was very much wanted to emulate Phil. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't think my voice complements the ferocity of what they have going on. And he sat me down and he said to me, dude, whatever you may be thinking, I'm telling you. I'm a fan of this genre. I'm a fan of this music. What I heard in that room, There's no doubt in my mind you guys are going to get signed. There's no doubt in my mind. And I'm like, I still wasn't sure, and I was scared to death of it, because I just didn't know how I would wrap my voice around it. But we, they invited me back, and we kept playing, and they kept their game face pretty good during the audition too. I could see the shit-eating grins a little bit kind of peeking through as I was singing, but they kind of held their cards close. They didn't right away tell me, "Oh, we want you to be in the band," but had to have a few more practices after that. But we started affecting one another, and changing one another's sound.
Speaking of the sickness, this year is actually the 15th anniversary of the sickness and the 10th anniversary of 10,000 Fists. Looking back, how do you feel about both of those records and the sort of musical evolution you guys went through in those 5 years?
I'm tremendously proud of everything we've done. Um, there's definitely something about the first record, a rawness, a you know the that rawness is, I know what appeals to a lot of people. After all these years, it kind of bugs me a little bit, just because I'm so much of a perfectionist, and I hear that record and had no idea what I was doing yet. I mean, at least in terms of rock, I had vocal training, but putting that grit on the vocal and putting that rasp into it that isn't typically a part of your speaking voice or normal singing voice, and doing it without damaging yourself is not an easy thing to master. And it was a challenge. It's still a challenge to a certain extent, but there's definitely a magic and a vibe that is irreplaceable, and that you can't replicate from that record. It's definitely unique. And with Fists, that was supposed to be, and it is, a resounding statement of us coming back at the time, of us surviving having lost a member, or getting rid of a member, I should say, if I'm being accurate. And that was a triumphant moment for us, Fists. It was a celebration. I still look at it that way.
Oh yeah, about Fire It Up.
Mm.
So that's obviously like an anthem for stoners like me everywhere. And what would you say to the naysayers who just don't get it?
Lighten up. Lighten the up. It's like, you know what? Not everything needs to be gloom and doom and serious and smacking you constantly. You got to have a little bit of yin and yang. And, I mean, for God's sake, Black Sabbath wrote Sweet Leaf. I mean, all of a sudden that's untouchable material. All of a sudden you're going to have a political issue with it or shit. It's like, I'm not making a political statement. I'm talking about something that has simply been the catalyst for my creativity, and for me being able to relax enough to let the doors open a little bit, um, for the vast majority of my career. 95% of the songs I've written easily, while under the influence, beyond any shadow of a doubt. And I'm not ashamed to say it or anything else. And I don't view it as demonically as some people do, and I'm not viewing it as a political statement. I may be for legalization in general, which I am, but that's not why we did the song. We did the song because Danny suggested to me when I was searching for additional themes. After 100 songs in, and you're writing about subject matter that's all serious, you kind of start running into the same themes from time to time, and it gets a little monotonous. And it's like, I go to the other guys to kind of feed me some ideas. What do you think I should write about? And Danny suggested, you know what? Why the hell not? It's what's helped you open the doors of creativity to your mind, for our entire career. Why not write a song about it? We did. Some people love it. Some people don't. Some people are going to probably come around, within a couple weeks' time, once it kind of settles into them, I love it. I think it's great. I think it's definitely a little bit of culture shock, not just from a thematic standpoint, but it starts out with my voice being in a very different spot that anybody's used to hearing me. And, so there's two different aspects. It's the stylistic difference, and it's the thematic difference that people are like, whoa. I'm like, all I have to tell you is if that threw you for a loop, wait till you hear a couple of the other tracks on the record, because this is diverse, man. It's funny. People bitch if you stay relatively similar, and they bitch if you evolve and if you change, and you can't win. At the end of the day, you have to follow your gut, and like I've been saying since day one, I can only hope that everybody is as happy with this body of work as we are. You can please some of the people some of the time. You can't please all the people all the time, and that's okay. Maybe this is part of growing pains or whatever the case may be. All I can ask for the Disturbed fans to do is just, relax, give it a minute, and then let it sink in before you're, if any of the more hardcore ones want to quickly dismiss it.
And I
Yeah.
gotta ask,
Mm.
what's your favorite strain, and what strain do you think would be the best to go with this record?
Oh man, it's tough because down in Austin it's not legalized, so I gotta hunt for whatever the hell I can get. But if I can find Kush of any kind anywhere I go, that's the preferable. I love it. If I go to Amsterdam, I'll hunt down the Master Kush over at the greenhouse the minute I get there. I still love White Widow too. I still love Bubblegum. I still love a bunch of them, but there is no substitute for Kush. Kush is just, to me, the be-all, end-all. And I'm much more of an indica guy than a sativa guy anyway, so I like the more stony or, right, body buzzish kind of thing, because that's what puts me in the right zone for creativity anyway. I'm not looking to wake up from it, you know what I mean? So,
And switching gears a little bit, I just want to find out, obviously having a child changes your worldview. So
mm.
I want to find out how it affected you and how you think that translates to your work.
It made me more defensive and angrier at the world. Now I have my son to protect. When it's just about me, look, everybody knows my temper isn't the best in the world to begin with, but man, I'm quick to fire when it comes to that. Anybody potentially harming my boy or threatening my boy in any way. And look at this world. It's one big giant threat. I've never been so scared in my life. And I think it's very apparent in the music. There's no doubt. You write a song like The Vengeful One, it's for a reason. You write a song like Who Taught You to Hate, it's for a reason. Those came from my boy. Those came from how I feel about the world in context to him.
Yeah, and you're right as far as the world and where it's going. And I know that with fellow Jews, things are a little strange. So
A little.
I just want to find out where you are with the U.S.'s position and
Same
with
place.
Israel's position.
Same place I've always been. I've said enough about it, brother. You know that. I mean, we can talk off the record after the camera's off if you want, but I don't want to. You gotta look, and this you can use. Okay, I've been a big mouth for long enough. Okay, I've said everything I have to say. It's out there, even though I deleted the Twitter account and the Facebook page and everything. That's the thing about the internet. It's forever there. Once you put it on there, it's there, and people can grab it. And I'm not ashamed of any of it, but it's gone on long enough. And it was taking time away from my family and my kid, and it gets to a point where you just kind of need to realize, you know what? I'm the front man for one of the most powerful bands on the face of this earth. People want me to be the guy who sets them free and lets them leave their burdens and set them down for a while, not that is constantly reminding them of them. So, I may have all the opinions in the world, and everybody's certainly entitled to them, but I'm not a politician, and I don't have any delusions of grandeur about changing the world. I was just trying to speak from my heart. And right now, I'm focused on being the best frontman for this band that I can possibly be, and doing what no one else can do in terms of being able to give people that release. So I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and speaking of release, I wanted to find out if writing these songs gave you any peace of mind knowing that, your son is always front and center.
Writing these songs is always cathartic, but it gives me no peace of mind. I don't think anything can give me peace of mind. That's almost unachievable for yours truly.
Yeah.
It's cool if you don't want to answer
Hmm.
this. I'm Jewish too.
Hmm.
I've been trying to get into the Israeli rock scene lately
Hmm.
and metal. I was just wondering what your thoughts are on like the Israeli metal scene and rock scene, and
It's
if you think.
it's big, you know. I mean, there's a lot of support there. Um, there's some amazing bands. And it's funny. It's one of the few markets in the area that metal bands are always welcome to come to. I think that it certainly shouldn't be written off. If I have my way, I'm gonna try and make sure that we get to play there this cycle. But we'll see. Maybe in time to see my new nephew when he comes into this world. My brother's expecting with his wife a baby. Well, I don't know if it's a nephew. My new niece or nephew, the new baby, whatever. No, I'll be able to get over there and see him. But hopefully, that new child will be born into a world where there's some element of safety.
Now, let me ask you this: as you were going through this album, and it is probably one of the most diverse things that you've done. Do you does it come to you certain songs say, okay, this would be a perfect opener, or this would be good in the middle of the set? Do you think in terms of live performance as you're making the record?
Not until it's done. Not until it's done. Until we sit back and everything's kind of completed, it's not until then that we know where everything kind of sits. No, don't get me wrong. You may have a vibe off of one tune or another, but whether it's a sequence of the record or a sequence of a live set, it's hard to tell until you have the entire body of work. So even if you have an inclination from one track or another.
So now that the record is done and it's
Now it's clear.
Yeah.
Now we have definitive ideas. Yeah. We've got lots of songs that we've never played live. That's for damn sure. And or songs that we haven't played live in a very, very long time. And that's something that we're definitely committed to doing this cycle. We intend to variate our live set as much as possible. Hopefully every time somebody's coming to see a Disturbed show, they're seeing a different show.
yeah, yeah.
Time to dip into the catalog a little more.
Yeah, I mean that would be phenomenal. I mean, and also it must help you guys stay motivated and stay psyched about what you're doing. Because I would imagine, I play in a cover band, and like even to do those songs 3 or 4 times, it gets a little bit. I could just imagine that you guys need variety here.
It you never want to feel like you're going through the motions, and so you always need to reconnect yourself to where the song came from to begin with each time you perform it. But yeah, variety is the spice of life for everybody to a certain extent. It's a tough battle because people want to hear the hits too, and so you have to have a nice balance. If you don't give them at least a little bit of what they're coming to hear, you deal with an unhappy fan, which we don't want. So we have to find that happy balance.
Have the discussions of this
Yes.
begun to happen? And also, I'm talking to other bands that make different, just quote unquote deep cuts, that sometimes it's been so long they've forgotten how to play them and have to relearn their own songs.
Let me tell you, there are going to be numerous periods of time during this touring cycle where we will have study hall, man. I mean, we're going to need to brush up on stuff if we're going to bring, some of the oldies but goodies out, no doubt. I mean, we're not. I don't have a photographic memory by any means. It probably has something to do with my weed consumption. So, yeah, we'll probably have our own little individual homework assignments from time to time.
Got my fingers crossed for Numb.
That's a great one. That's a great one. I'm sure that'll make it in there back there at some point, no doubt. I love that one. That one was probably the one on that record that was most Tool inspired, I guess, on The Sickness. Yeah.
Not to harp so much on the live
Hmm.
show, but I wanted to find out how many of the new songs do you think are going to be?
Out of the gate, we can only be very sparing with it. Not only because it's primarily because there isn't enough awareness yet, but there's only one show we're playing in 2015, and that's at the House of Blues in Chicago, day of record release, and then we're not doing anything until 2016. Part of the issue with keeping something a secret for so long is you can't plan for it until it's no longer a secret. So we are a little behind with that, but we're going to announce some dates hopefully before the 14th, at least an initial string of dates, and as soon as we have more to tell people, we will. But yeah, we're just chomping at the bit, man. Can't wait to get back out there.
So how do you gauge the success of Immortalized?
I'll be able to tell you at the end of this touring cycle. I'm hoping we get another number one debut. That would be wonderful. If we don't, we're still Disturbed. We're still going to go out there. We're still going to, fill rooms. We're still going to set people free and make them feel powerful. So that's the primary reason we're doing what we're doing. It's not for any other reason other than we're dying to do it.
What was the biggest impact that you think you've had on a fan? Because, like you said, your music does tend to inspire.
It's meant to empower people, and it's meant to get them through the difficult times of their lives and to overcome adversity and challenges. And I can't even count the number of times people have mentioned to me that either it's pulled them out of deep depressions or gotten them through difficult periods of their lives or helped them survive combat or, the most crazy stories. Music is so powerful and so important to people, and it becomes the soundtrack of your life. Certain songs, they become married to visions and memories you have of prior life experiences. They become ways of recalling something so vividly, so instantly, that it's almost as if you're there the minute you hear the song. That's part of the reason why the record is called Immortalized. That's what music does. So I think that we'll just continue to try and go down that road. Hey, what's up? This is David Draiman from Disturbed, and you're watching Artisan News.